message.
Assalamu alaikum, family. It's your brother Landon X. This is Nation Town TV Live once again, and we're gonna deal with a big question, a big baller question, the $1 trillion question. As we just came off of a weekend dealing with the history of Black Wall Street, the ups and the downs, the successes and the failures, I couldn't help but think about the $1 trillion question that most of us are afraid to answer or just don't know how to answer. But we're going to talk about it and get more in depth with it. Let's get it.
I was told to deliver this message.
Rio.
Assalamu alaikum, family. It's your brother Landon X. This is Nation Town TV Live. Shout out to everybody chiming in. We are dealing with a particular topic that I'm kind of tiptoeing through the tulips with off top for a very good reason. The $1 trillion question. What do I mean by the $1 trillion question? Well, it's a question that popped up in my mind this past weekend as we were the whole Black diaspora in America was kind of dragged through a trauma festival of remembering Black Wall Street, which we absolutely should do, but particularly remembering not Black Wall Street, but the tragic massacre that took place on what I call 530. It started on 530, and just like they call 9/11 9/11, I call this 530 because it's really our 9/11. It kicked off with an alleged incident on 530 that went through the Memorial Day weekend 100 years ago, essentially burning down Black Wall Street. But Black Wall Street did rebuild, but all of the emphasis was put on the actual massacre. But I don't think enough emphasis was put on what built Black Wall Street, what built it the first time and what built it the second time. Because here's the question. With the $1 trillion question, you got to look at some things that's going on right now. First of all, there has never been more black college graduates. There have never been more black people with college degrees and post-secondary education. It's never been more black professionals in America today with so-called good jobs. Professional doctors, lawyers, nurses, 6 figures, high-value black men and women. There's this emphasis on getting the bag. Even entrepreneurship has seen a spike in the last 20 years. And this image that you see on Instagram and social media of this, high level lifestyle, doing it for the gram. Everybody's, doing it, and everybody's living it up. Everybody got it like that. And then this is also the woke generation. Everybody's woke. Everybody knows all the black trivia. And that's what it's boiled down to, trivia. Did you know this, and that, and that, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that? Everybody's woke. Everybody living it up. Everybody's professional. Everybody's getting to the bag. Everybody's got the white coat on. Everybody's got the tassel. Everybody's got the degree. However, overall black wealth in America has not increased 1 iota since the late 60s. And then on top of that, you don't even have to look at the statistics. We're going to get in that in a minute, but the typical so-called black community, and I say so-called because we don't even have communities. We have colonies that we like to call communities. But the typical ghetto, as it's called, still looks like this. Still looks like this in 2021. But we doing this and that and that, and we woke like this, and we get in the bag. So in loving memory of Black Wall Street, something don't add up. Black Wall Street and the 60 plus other successful economic empire towns that were built after slavery, they were built by former slaves, people, many of which couldn't even write, couldn't even read, or they did it poorly. But they were able to build over 60 plus black towns. I mean, it's like the scripture says, they were able to set a table in the midst of their enemies. All of these towns were below the Mason-Dixon, almost all of them. There was maybe a couple of them that were up north, but almost all of them were south of the Mason-Dixon line, where we all believe houses the most racist, not just white people, but also the most racist laws existed at that time, south of the Mason-Dixon. However, 60 plus successful black towns. And these were, like I said, there were deeds being signed, house deeds being signed by people who had to sign the deed to their house with an X, because they couldn't even sign their name. So something is missing. There's a disconnect here. We got all this money, all this education, everybody getting the bag. However, black wealth has not moved an inch, and let me prove that with actual facts. We deal with actual facts in the Nation of Islam. But before I go any further, let me just go ahead and start off in the proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. who came 9,000 miles by himself and made himself known. July 1930, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. I'm speaking of Master Fard Muhammad. He proved who he was when he raised up a Georgia-born black man who didn't even have a 4th grade education, could hardly spell or write his name at the time. He struggled with alcohol, struggled with poverty. However, he was raised out of the mud, even though the mud, as he put it, was up to his eyeballs. He raised him to create an $80 million empire at a time when a black man couldn't even pick his own seat on a bus. I'm speaking of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He is that promised messenger of the Holy Quran when it says that certainly a messenger would be raised for every nation. And he proved who he was by raising up, along with the help of Almighty God himself in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, their 2 hands combined. I don't think y'all heard me. Those 2 hands combined to make sure that the word of God and the example of God intervened in our affairs through the divine leadership, teaching, and guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in those 3 great names, I greet the Nation Town family in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Again, shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. I see you, Charlie, Sister Charlie. All praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah. Brother Ahmad, all praises due to Allah. He said they not woke, they just fidgeting in their sleep. That's real. That's real. That's real. I don't even like the term woke. Because even if you woke, if you think about it, how do we wake up? I don't know. Maybe y'all better than me. Maybe y'all on something. Y'all got some kind of special. Maybe y'all on the new teachings or whatever. But me, I've never woken up on my feet. You wake up still laying down. It's just your eyes open, but your body's still. In fact, you got to sit there, and the older you get, the harder it is. But you got to sit there and talk yourself into getting up. And sometimes you got a sleep god on the side of your mind telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't get up, why you should hit the snooze button, why you should get a couple more hours of sleep, why you should call in to your job, why you should take a day off, why you shouldn't go to school. So just waking up is not enough, especially in this day and age. So I never liked the term being woke, but let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Shout out to Brother Billy Bland, wa alaikum salam. All praises due to Allah, dear brother. I want to get into actual facts. Again, I want to repeat. The actual $1 trillion question is, how is it that black college degrees and education is at an all-time high? How is it that black professionals, there are more black people with so-called good jobs, all-time high? There are more people claiming to be woke than ever before, all-time high. All of these things, we live in our best life at an all-time high. We appear to be. However, the overall black community still looks like this. I mean, you go to any black community, you can just pick it. You can do like our brother did, Brother Eddie Murphy did on the first Coming to America, how they spun the globe and then they just touched a part of it. And then that decided what city they were going to go to find Hakeem a wife. You can do that in America with a map of America right now. And not just the major cities, not just the Chicagos, the LAs, the New Yorks. You can go into the smaller cities, the Little Rocks, the Flints, the Clevelands, the Tulsa, Oklahomas, the Austin, Texas, the Baton Rouge, Louisianas. And they look just like this. I bear witness. But everybody getting the bag, though. And everybody's educated, though. And everybody's woke. But 100 years ago, former slaves were able to build, some say, over 60 towns, black towns. Some put the number up to around 200. And these were black towns that were sprawling. I mean, these were black towns, as we would call it today. They were balling. I mean, they had everything they needed. They lived amongst each other. And listen, very few of them were destroyed by redneck racism. Very few. Very few of them were completely destroyed by redneck racism. Not even Black Wall Street in Tulsa. That's one thing that really irked me about this weekend. I know my Nation Town family, that's the normal viewers of Nation Town. You probably thought I was just having a ball this weekend, seeing all the attention that Black Wall Street was getting, given the fact that I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma originally, and also we talk about Black Wall Street a lot. But I absolutely despised this past weekend because the focus, and I purposely made sure I didn't do any content during the actual weekend because the focus was all on the attack. It was all on the terrorist attack. Nothing about how it was built. Nothing about how it was built. Everything was on 530. Everything was about 530. When your child goes to school, if your child goes to a public school or predominantly white school, even if it's a public ghetto school, if they learn about economics, 9/11 is not even going to come up. They'll learn about 9/11 later, but it's going to be a separate education. It's going to be a separate topic. But when they talk about the roaring 20s and how the American economy blew up, 9/11 wanted, and that was the purpose, even though it was more than likely a false flag operation, that was supposed to be the intended purpose of them hitting those Twin Towers, was the fact that the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center in New York, represented the economic prowess of America. And of course, Black Wall Street represented the former economic prowess of the former slave in America. But why has it been 100 years have passed? And it's almost like you look around now and it's almost hard to even convince someone in any city that there was ever a Black Wall Street. And here's the thing, in almost every city that black people lived in after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, there was at least a neighborhood in that city that was thriving. There was one in LA, there was one in every city. There was a black neighborhood. Maybe not on the level of Black Wall Street, but there was at least a black neighborhood in every city that black people existed that was thriving. Now, I gotta admit, the question that I'm asking, this $1 trillion question, is absolutely rhetorical. I know the answer, and we're going to get into the answer, but we got to really we got to let this sting, like what Usher used to say, let it burn. We got to let this burn. And why is it the $1 trillion question? Well, we're going to get into that in a moment. We definitely going to get into that. But we definitely won't be on long, family. Hit us up with your questions and comments. Make sure you share this message, share this message, share this message. And this is, of course, brought to you by NationTownStore.com. Make sure y'all hit that up. Show us some love on Cash App at $NationTown, which, of course, a percentage of that goes to our fantastic Meal and a Message program, where we help service and feed those that are less fortunate here in Los Angeles with personal care products, as well as food items and meals, the same kind of meals that we eat: healthy bean soup, fruit, even PPE products. Make sure you show us some love on Cash App, $NationTown. And also, if you haven't already, I don't know what's wrong with you, make sure you subscribe on Nation Town TV on YouTube. Make sure you do that. But now that that's said, again, make sure y'all hit us up with your questions and comments. I see everybody chiming in. Assalamu alaikum. We see you. Like I said, I definitely won't be on long, but inshallah, we're going to be strong. But let's get into some actual facts, because I don't want to just say that there has been no progress. The issue is we've been lied to about what progress is, and we've lied to each other. We've even raised our children with the wrong idea of progress. Let's look at some real sobering stats real quick. These are actual facts from Black Enterprise magazine. In 2017, the black unemployment rate was 7.5%, which went up. And that's not a good thing when you're talking about unemployment rate. It went up from 6.7% in 1968. So hold on, let's stop right there. The black unemployment rate is worse now than it was in 1968. Now, some of us that are watching, you probably grew up watching In the Heat of the Night at your grandma's house. You probably grew up watching Roots. You probably to this day are watching all the slave movies, all the civil rights movies that they make, and you see Dr. King getting hit in the head with a brick, and brothers and sisters being lynched in the middle of the woods somewhere in the South, and you think to yourself, oh man, I'm so glad I live in this day and age. I'm glad I live in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s. I'm glad I was born whenever I was born, because man, back then it must have been so hard. However, it was actually easier for a black man, particularly a black man who didn't have the best education, to get a job. In fact, there was a time in most industrial cities here in America where a black man who didn't even have a college education could get a job at a factory, a good paying job, and eventually even be able to afford to buy a house and send his children to school. How do you think black people even ended up in cities like Chicago, Gary, Indiana, Detroit? You think we just woke up one day in the South and said, let's go north, let's just go and be cold? Come on now, you know black folks, you know we don't like to be cold. We don't like to be hot either, but we damn sure don't like to be cold. There was a time where black people went where the jobs are. That's a lost art. That's a lost art. You still see our Hispanic family doing that. That's why they here. That's why they stand in front of that Home Depot. You laugh at them, but they got the same spirit that our fathers had. And we got to get back. No matter what your education is, just that spirit, we got to get it back. But we moved to wherever the jobs were. We weren't just running from racism. We knew this white man too well. In fact, do you know that 90+% of the white people that live in the western part of the United States, they're descendants of Southern crackers? Because when Confederates got their butt whooped in the Civil War, many of those whites, when their houses got burned down by the Union Army, they moved out west. All those Wild Wild West characters you hear about, Billy the Kid and Sundance Kid and all of these people, they were rob trains and all of that. These were former Confederates from Alabama, Mississippi. And right after the Civil War, they started to build up the West. They started stealing land from the Native Americans, and they started to industrialize the West. So many of these butthurt Confederates would move out west to places like Texas, Oklahoma, Nevada. They would rob banks. Billy the Kid would rob banks and then burn the money. Why? Because he knew that the banks were FDIC insured. They were insured by the government. They probably didn't call it FDIC back then, but they were insured by the government, the Union government, the same union that burned down his whole family's farm and all of that back in the South. So just to bang on the Union and just to bang on America, he would rob banks and then give the money away or burn it. He didn't give a damn about the money. These were defeated Confederate soldiers. So when you run into a white person in California, Nevada, Arizona, these are Confederates, man. They are the children of Confederates. They just moved out this way. This devil is not native to any place on earth. But anyway, back in the day, we went to where the jobs were. And that's how we ended up in these industrialized cities. But let's keep reading. Again, the unemployment rate was actually lower in 1968. Let's read further. And it says, and it's still roughly twice the white unemployment rate. In 2015, the black home ownership rate was just over 40%, virtually unchanged since 1968, and trailing a full 30 points behind the white home ownership rate, which saw modest gains over the same period. And the share of African Americans in prison or jail almost tripled between 1968 and 2016. But we woke now, though. But we getting the bag now, though. And currently, the incarceration rate is 6 times the white incarceration rate. But I ain't done yet. I ain't done. I got to prove what I'm saying. Check this out. Black incomes are up, but wealth isn't. Now, stop right there. I got to stop. Pump the brakes. Black incomes are up, wealth is not. That may seem confusing to some of us that are watching this, and that, you've been watching your timeline. You've been hearing about generational wealth. And everybody today who really doesn't know what generational wealth is, when they mention generational wealth, they just talking about getting money. Just income coming in. That's not wealth. And it damn sure ain't generational. Black incomes are up, but wealth isn't. What you see on the left is the bar of overall wealth of whites, and on the right, overall wealth of blacks. In fact, the bar chart is so slim, the shades that you see in the categories are so slim on the black side, they couldn't even put the numbers inside of the bar. They had to sit it on top because there wasn't no room to do it as they did with the whites. Here's the bottom line, family. You've been had. You've been had by the idea that black success is as simple as a college degree. It's as simple as nearness to white people. I'm talking geographical, actual nearness to white people. A pat on the head from white people. Buying certain things, driving a certain kind of car. Now, ain't nothing wrong with that. We're taught in the Nation of Islam that the Aboriginal man deserves the best of what this world has to offer. But on top of that, we could create those things, and we can be the we could be the purveyors of those things, and we could be the ones selling those things if we think about it. Now, you've been had based on the fact that when we log on to our timeline today, and you just go off of your timeline, you don't go outside, you don't go in the streets, you don't go in the projects, you don't see how people are really doing. If you just went, if an alien landed on Earth and just went over somebody's timeline, they would swear that black people were doing just fine. So why is it that we have more education, more professional employment? We seem to be so much more civilized. Black people are going places we ain't never been before. I'm talking actual places. We traveling to places we ain't never been before. We going to Art Basel in Europe and stuff. We traveling, we doing all this great stuff, but our overall condition has not changed one bit. Don't look at Black Wall Street in the massacre that took place in 1921, 530, and think, man, it's terrible how they did them back then. They did a study on a frog, where they put the frog in boiling water, and as soon as they dropped the frog in the boiling water, the frog jumped out because that heat got on his backside instantly. But then they took the same frog and they put it in lukewarm water, and they gradually turned up the heat. And do you know that frog sat there in that water and boiled to death and never moved? That's what we've been going through the last 100 years. I mean, add up all the George Floyds, all the Trayvon Martins, all the Sandra Blands. Add them up over them. Just the ones you heard of. Them just the ones that social media got hold of. Them just the ones that the overall media heard of. You know how many strange fruit over the last 100 years have rotted, hanging off of trees or sitting in a ditch? They still uncovering dead bodies in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now from 1921. You know how many dead black people there are? Just over the last 100 years. So we're not only dealing with the same economic oppression, but we're dealing with the same overall oppression. Now, here's the issue. Here's the answer, so to speak, to the $1 trillion question. Shout out to everybody chiming in. We won't be on long, family. Hit us up with your questions and comments. Brother Ahmad said in order to build those towns, our people had to separate. Absolutely, had to separate mentally, spiritually, and geographically. But here's the issue. Here's why, with all of those things, our condition overall has not changed. Dear family, I submit to you the fact that in 2021, the Aboriginal man and woman is economically ignorant. I didn't say economically ignorant. You could plead that case too, but we're economically ignorant. Ignorant just simply meaning we don't know. We really don't know what economics is. We think economics is just getting the bag. No. I talk about it all the time, how in our lessons in the Nation of Islam, we drove the Caucasian into the hills and cave sides of Europe, and we took everything from him except for the language. So they actually went to work. Their devilishment went to work on the languages before it ever went to work on any of the darker people of this earth. So they've been playing around with language for years. So when you run into the English language, which is one of the youngest and most bastardized languages that exist, you got to get to the root of the word. Let's look at that word economy. Let's deal with the definition first, and then we're going to get into that root. All up in that root. Let's look at economy. It's a noun. Now, study this definition carefully, family. It says the wealth and resources of a country or region, especially in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services. Now, mind you, when you look at that definition, the production and consumption, so the way we consume and the way we produce, if we produce at all, that's what economy is. Notice it doesn't say the getting of the bag and the getting paid and getting that money is, it doesn't say that, does it? Because we don't really know what economy really means. And this is what you always hear when finances come up in politics. What's the economy like in America? What's the economy like in Russia? What's the economy in China? It's talking about production and consumption and how those things are going down. But look at some of the secondary definitions. We getting deeper. Number 2, look at this definition. Careful management of available resources. Economy means careful management of available. It ain't talking about getting the bag. It ain't talking about hustling. It ain't talking about getting this money. It's saying careful management of whatever's available. And then go further down. It says sparing or careful use of something. Careful management of available resources. I'm calling this the $1 trillion question because the black man has, on average, $1.3 trillion of spending power. Now, you're going to run into some Negroes who will try to downplay that number and say, oh, but it's talking about rent and utilities. No. Black people in America spend 98% of our money with people that don't look like us or give a damn about us. The dollar in the black community lasts less than 6 hours, whereas it lasts an entire month or more in other communities. That's where that spending power comes in. That's where that spending power. Yeah, you ain't gonna find a black-owned electric company. You ain't gonna find a black-owned gas company. Not today, not yet. But how do you think all of that came about on the white side of things? Over $1 trillion of spending power. But check this out. Let's go back. Let's get into the actual etymology, the actual root of the word economics. Now, I already kind of hinted at it, but check this out. It's a Greek word broken up into two parts. You got oikos and nemean. You put it together, it's oikonomia, which means, as you see down there toward the bottom, household management. It ain't about getting money. There's an economy even if there is no money. In the very early days of Black Wall Street, they did not have money. They bartered their resources and skills. Brother over there knew how to build a house. Sister over there knew how to sew clothes. Brother over there knew how to work the land. To get wood so brother could build a house. To get cotton out the ground so sister could sew some clothes together. So they bartered their skills and resources. And we're not talking about a 200, 300 year process. Keep in mind that the Emancipation Proclamation, even Juneteenth, was in 1865. Within 40 years of that, which is a little over one generation, that's when they got the term, the name Negro Wall Street. It was the actual name white folks gave it. There were writers from New York that came down to Oklahoma, and they came down to follow the oil boom and to do stories on the oil magnates of the Southwest. And they just happened to run into Negro Wall Street, and they termed it Negro Wall Street. They didn't give them that name in 1920 or 1919 or 18. They had that name and had that moniker and had that reputation in the first decade of the 1900s. But the slaves, so-called, were not freed until 1865. So in less than 40 years, they earned the name Black or Negro Wall Street. So we ain't talking about a whole lot of time. But there was precise household management of resources. They only spent their money with each other. Now, one excuse that you could say, one thing you could come up with that I would have to agree with, you would say, well, Brother Landon, they did that because they had to. I agree. Because the actual attack on 5/30/21 was spawned by an incident between a young black man and a white girl. So obviously, black people throughout America, especially the South, could not just go amongst white people. If we did, it was extremely hostile. It was hostile for us to go grocery shopping. Hostile for us to just get a shirt to put on our back. Hostile to try to go get a job. Hostile. But let's look at 2021. Is it really much better? Do you not have young black men having the police called on them just for meeting with each other at a Starbucks in Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, Mississippi? There is a Philadelphia, Mississippi, by the way. But no, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a group of young professionals, college educated, decided to meet up at a Starbucks. They all had on shirts and ties, slacks. One of the brothers probably had on penny loafers, man. And they called the police on them. Dominique Wilkins, all-star, legendary basketball player, got turned away at a restaurant in Atlanta, which everybody want to call the Black Mecca, and got turned away from a white restaurant. Now, why he was going to a predominantly white restaurant in the middle of the closest thing we have to a Black Mecca, I don't know and I don't understand, but that's how they do it in the NBA. But the point is this. Yeah, they had to do it back in 1921, but if you look closely, is it any different now? I got to show y'all this again. This is our communities today. Does this say necessity to you? Do the people that live on a block like this have a need for anything? Do they have a want for anything? So the idea that they had to do something yesterday and we don't today is absurd. The fact that we have the education, we have the so-called professional jobs, and we still getting treated like this proves even more so than it did yesterday that we need to get away from these people financially first. Because I'm going to tell you something, man. Because you kind of have right now these two kind of growing opinions about separation. Some people think it has to be physical first. It's got to be geographic. We did a whole series on it on Nation Town TV. Listen, man, there's a popular image. I would pull it up. I don't have time. That was in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper of a white man who was the head of a snake, and his head was a white man, and then it shows his snake tail wrapped around the whole world. This Caucasian is everywhere. His mind is everywhere. You're not gonna find. Listen, he loves to be in the sticks and in the middle of nowhere. That's where he lives. Black folks in America, we only live in like 5 places. We in the major cities because that's where we migrated to get jobs. But all them little states in between where you ain't never been to, you don't even care about, North Dakota, Utah, in between the Dallases and the Houstons and the Tulsas and the New Orleans and the Atlantas. Like they say, when you go to Georgia, there's Atlanta and then there's Georgia. The white people live in the Georgia part. They live in the Texas part. See, they live in the California part. We live in the Los Angeles part. We live in the San Francisco parts. But the white man is all in the sticks, so it ain't no geographically getting away from it. But the problem is when you have to rely on your enemy for your everyday goods. That's where the problem is. Let's keep it moving. Like I said, we ain't going to be on long. Sister Charlie said, dead cannot be woke up. You have to be raised or resurrected. That's real. Somebody got to raise you up out that bed. That's how my mama used to do. I couldn't just say I'm up. She'd kick through the door. And if I'm still laying down, no, that's the end of that. You got to get up. Now, let's get into the lessons a little bit. The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, particularly our supreme wisdom, because we're taught something in the Nation of Islam that some of you who are not in the Nation of Islam may be aware of or may not be aware of. But we're taught the supreme wisdom. And in our supreme wisdom, in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 11, a very interesting question is posed by the God himself. It says, will you sit at home and wait for that mystery God to bring you food? And the answer is emphatically no. Me and my people who have been lost from home for 379 years have tried this so-called mystery God for bread, clothing, and a home, and we receive nothing but hard times, hunger, naked, and out of doors. But here's the thing. If we don't believe in a mystery God, that nullifies you from being able to believe in a mystery, anything that is below God. And last time I checked, if you had to rank everything in the world, everything would come under God in ranking. So if you don't believe in a mystery God. You can't believe in a mystery economy. You can't believe in mystery finances. You can't believe in mystery freedom and mystery justice and mystery equality. But somehow we have this mystery economic mind where we sit around and we think that a black Wall Street or economic salvation, better schools, better communities is going to come by way of some mystery. We sit around and we wait on somebody to start some kind of movement that's going to come to our doorstep, pick us up, and take us out of our condition. Some of us are even waiting on the very same government that put us in this situation to get us out of it. I'm going to tell you something, man. Waiting on reparations is not a revolutionary platform. Do we deserve reparations? Absolutely. That goes without saying. In fact, if you really tallied up the amount that we're owed as black people, it's a number, like it says in the scripture, a number that no man can count. They would have to turn over this whole country, not just 8 to 10 states. They would have to turn over the keys to the whole thing and say, there you go, black man, my bad. And they would still owe us about $500. Because this country is what, 40-something trillion dollars in debt. So if they turned over the whole country, they would still have to give us a Chevy or something on top of that. It ain't even a fair trade if they turned over the whole country. So these days we try to make reparations this real revolutionary stance. It's not. It's begging. It's begging with a beret on your head. It's begging with your fist up. It's begging with a dashiki on, but it's still begging. And it's still a mystery concept. You want the same man who don't even consider you to be a man, 3/5 of a man, to give you full reparations? And he owed China $15 trillion? Man, please. That is a mystery God mentality. It's just, instead of it being God, it's mystery economics. Listen, some of us can't even laugh at our spooky Christian brothers and sisters no more, who sit around waiting on a mystery God. We can't laugh at them no more. We doing the same thing with protesting. What do you think this is? She got her hands up for the same reason she got her hands up. It's the same thing. It's protesting. Do you know? Because think about it. A lot of these protests end up where? They end up downtown. They end up on City Hall of whatever city the protest is. They end up on the courthouse steps. Do you know in legal documents, when you file a complaint, the plaintiff or the defendant can put in something that's called a prayer? And then that prayer, that side of the case, whether it's the plaintiff or the defendant, usually the plaintiff is basically telling the court, this is what we want out of this trial, out of this proceeding. We want this, this, and this. We feel like we are entitled to this, this, and this. And the old legal term for it is the prayer. Some call it a declaration, but you look through some documents right now. If you go to a law library right now, some of the brothers who have been locked up, if you look through your paperwork, the prosecutor probably put in something called a prayer. Prayer, just like praying to God, a prayer, praying to the court. Some of us sitting around mad because Asians got a crime bill before we did. I mean, come on, man. Is this not the same government that gave us them Tuskegee shots? Is this not the same government that reneged on 40 acres and a mule, and now you want another deal from them? I mean, that's why I say what's on this hoodie. Keep that same energy with your enemy. Let's start treating the American government like you treat black businesses. You go into black business one time and they short you 2 packs of hot sauce. Never again. You turn into a Jew. You turn into a Jew when it comes to the Holocaust. Never again. I will never, not just that black-owned business. I'll never go to Shaniqua Soul Food ever. No, that's not what you say. Even that's bad enough, but no, you'll say, see, that's why I don't mess with black-owned. Come on, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. That's why I don't mess with black-owned. Well, when it comes to begging and protesting, that's why I don't mess with the American government. Because I done read a couple of history books. And I got a wise teacher. And I know their history. So I'm not saying we don't deserve reparations. We don't deserve this law and that law. We deserve, like I said, they should turn over the keys to the whole country. And they would still owe us a polo shirt on top of that. They owe us everything. Let's just call it what it is. But sitting around waiting on it, and most of all, praying for it, that's what a protest is. That's what a protest is. It's a petition. It's a prayer. That's another thing they call a court complaint. When they file a complaint, it's a petition to the court. Petition is another word for prayer. When you get on your knees and you pray to God, when you make salat to my Muslim family, you are petitioning God to give you strength, to give you blessing, to give you mercy, whatever the case may be. That's a petition. So who are you petitioning? God or the white God? That might be the source of your problems. Let's keep it moving, because I don't want to be on there all day. Let's go back to our supreme wisdom. And this is to my Muslim family. I want you to go back and look at the lessons and go to Lost Found Muslim lesson number 11, where it asks the questions, will you sit at home and wait for that mystery God? But then I want you to pay attention. There's so much to dig into with our supreme wisdom. It ain't just about recitation and being able to recite the T. That's the most elementary aspect of it. I want you to look at the fact that these are all numbered. And number 11 comes right in between a couple of other ones. Number 11, of course, comes after number 8. And then before number 13. Why am I pointing those out? Because number 8 talks about what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquake. And then number 13 says what brings rain, hail, snow, and earthquake. And why is the concept of a mystery God in between rain, hail, snow, and earthquake? Why is it talking about what brings rain, hail, snow, and earthquake, and then talks about a mystery God? And then on the other side of that, it talks about what makes. Because it's trying to teach you the cause and effect law. Because it says in question number 9 that we believe our enemy on face value. Face value. Face value. Because we don't understand cause and effect. We think that if there's going to be another Black Wall Street, then it has to be some kind of mystery thing that happens, like when thunder and lightning strikes and when snow comes, it just happens. And maybe if we pray really hard, it just really, if I buy enough dashikis, if they make another Black Panther movie, if I don't know, if we do another protest, if we have a concert or something in the middle of Tulsa, if the president come and talk to us, if something just magical happens, we'll have another Black. No, there's a cause and effect. It says again in the answer of question number 9, we believe the enemy at face value. You know what another word for face value is in the business world, particularly the retail world? Face value is brand recognition. One of the main reasons that we have not moved an inch economically, despite having more spending money, despite having more education, is because we put such a brand name on white-owned businesses. We think that our personal value is determined by how much money I can put in a white man's pocket. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Like, I love that line Kanye said on his first album, when he was talking about how he wanted name brand products that he couldn't even pronounce. Past that for Sacy. We never even heard of some of this stuff, but all we got to do is know that it's white owned, white made, and expensive. And since we see such little value in ourselves, we think that buying that, getting that, going here, going there, living there gives us value. Economics is about how we spend and manage our money. And we give it all to our enemy on face value. I want you to watch something real quick. We're going to get up out of here. And then we're going to hear from the minister as well. Some of you have probably seen this video before on social media, but I want you to pay attention.
Force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be number one without Negro support. A product must have the backing of this big new buying power to be a leader in the field. What do you have to sell? Chewing gum or cars? Toothpaste or transportation? Whatever it is, here are millions of prospects, and these prospects are everywhere. Negro customers can no longer be pigeonholed. They cannot be classified as prospects who trade only in certain stores, certain neighborhoods. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth.
You have to understand the Negro. Now, what y'all just saw, because all weekend y'all been told that all Black Wall Street, it was this, it was that. They had this many businesses, that many businesses, this many schools, that many grocery stores, this, and this. And then it all came to an end because a couple of peckerwoods got mad and a couple of planes dropped bombs. That's absolutely false. Within 5 years, 70% of those businesses were back up and running, and they didn't even get insurance payouts. Black Wall Street continued into the early 1940s. The video you just saw is what killed Black Wall Street. It's what killed Willingsboro in North Carolina. It's what really killed Rosewood. It's what really killed every economically strong black town. Economic integration. When they told you that you can get colder ice from them, when you could get better brands from them, that was a infomercial that was distributed to white companies who for years didn't even bother selling to the Negro for 2 reasons, not just out of racism. They could not sell to black people. Why? Because black people had everything they needed in their own communities. And then they had white customers who said, I don't want to shop at a grocery store or a department store where I got to stand in line behind a nigga. So in the 40s and 50s and 60s, these white companies had to rework their marketing campaigns because now they realized there was millions and billions and now trillions of dollars in the black economy. Even though we the last hired, first fired, least educated, there's billions of dollars. Our money is as green as anybody. So they started to tell them, hey, this is how you sell to the Negro. Why is that? If you notice that infomercial was from the 1950s. How long black people been in America? How long has it been since 1865? So almost 100 years after slavery ended, now they got to tell white companies how to sell to the Negro. Shouldn't that infomercial have been from the night? Shouldn't it have been a radio commercial from the early 1900s? That's because black people didn't start spending their money with white-owned businesses faithfully until around that time. That's what killed Black Wall Street. Not a bomb, not a fire. Come up off that. So that's why we got all this education. We so woke, we getting so many bags because the bag got a hole in it. How long will you find yourself trying to fill up a bag that got a hole at the bottom? You'll be filling it all day. And at the end of the day, it'll have the same amount in that bag that it had at the beginning of the day because it got a hole in it. What is the hole? The hole is the way we spend our money with everybody but ourselves. It ain't about getting the money. Once you learn how to spend the money will automatically get got, for lack of better English. That's how Black Wall Street wasn't some kind of movement where a bunch of sedity Negroes came together and said, here, henceforth and whatnot, we shall put our resources together and build a tiny empire in the middle of Tulsa. These were the poorest black folks you could find. They were former slaves and sharecroppers. But when you only rely on your brother and your brother is only relying on you, that will automatically bring about economic freedom. It's a fact. That's how the Jews got theirs. That's how the Italians got theirs. That's how you see the Asians getting it. That's how they got it. It ain't nothing spooky. We don't believe in a spook God. Therefore, we can't believe in a spook anything else. Take the spookism out of it. And let me close with this, family. Getting up out of here. The brother mentioned in the comments earlier separation. Keep in mind, separation is a full body concept. It's a process from head to toe. It has to start in your head. The renewing of your mind, like it says in the scripture, then it has to matriculate from your head to your pockets. And the way you manage your money, the way you manage your mind, and then the way you manage your pockets. And then it'll matriculate down to your feet. But by the time it gets to your feet, that means you can go wherever you want to go. That's why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a free black man. He can go all over the world because his separation process has already started in his mind, matriculated down to his pockets, and now his feet can take him wherever he want to go. So just running out into the woods and building a cabin, that ain't separation. Just sitting around reciting what you think you know, that ain't separation. It's got to make its way in between in your pockets. It is no other way. If you spending 90% or more of your money with your enemy when you know you can do it with black people, then, you playing yourself. You playing yourself. And I get the question all the time about how do we find ways to support black businesses? Well, I'm going to go over some things real quick, and I'm going to go through it very quick. Here's 9 ways to support black-owned businesses. I got this information from my black-owned bank. The largest black-owned bank in America, One United, and they sent me some information, and I'm going to share it with y'all. Each one teach one. 9 ways to buy black. Here's number 1.
The necessity.
Participate in Blackout Day 2021. Some of y'all remember we did this last year. Yes, we're doing it again. On Wednesday, July 7th, 2021, we are asking everyone to only buy black. Now you say, well, why just one day? Well, like old folks say, man, you got to crawl before you walk. Don't claim, oh, I'm going to do it every day. But then the statistics say that 98% of us spend 98% of our money on somebody lying. Somebody lying. So let's keep it real and let's crawl before we walk. Number 2. Find black-owned businesses in your community with Google. Google it. That's all you got to do. It says now with Google's black-owned identification feature, black-owned businesses can have a brown or black heart icon next to them. Y'all got that? Let's keep it moving, keep it moving. Remember, it's 9 things. Number 3, there's actually a website. We Buy Black. I believe the sister that runs We Buy Black actually spoke at Mas Mariam a couple of years ago on the invite of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Check out We Buy Black, the largest online marketplace for black-owned businesses that supports the Buy Black movement. You can shop and learn how you can support black-owned businesses. You can also advertise your business and reach over 1 million shoppers. I bear witness. Let's keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. You can also download, did you know about this? You can download the official Black Wall Street app and find thousands of black-owned businesses at your fingertips. OBWS is the largest app and digital platform connecting consumers to black-owned businesses with over 1 million consumers shopping and spreading awareness. With the app, you can find black-owned businesses located in your own neighborhood. Also, number 5, when the black movement was sparked in 2016, Blackout Coalition was launched to provide information on black banks and credit unions. You can find one nearest you or bank online from anywhere in the U.S. with One United Bank, the largest black-owned bank. I can vouch for One United. I love the customer service. Now they only have actual locations in a couple of cities, but you can have an account there wherever you are. But, you know, these days, most banking is done online anyway, unless you brokering something like a mortgage agreement or whatever. You really don't have to walk into a bank. But I definitely vouch for One United. They also have a Bank Greenwood that's based out of Atlanta, but it uses the Greenwood term. I don't really like that. But hey, it is what it is. But look into them. Also, Broadway Federal Credit Union. But it's a few of them. It's a lot more black banks than you might think. A lot more than you might think. Number 6, one of the largest purchases and ways to accumulate wealth is to buy a home. Come on now. Why not use a black realtor? The National Association of Real Estate Brokers, NAREB, was founded in Tampa, Florida in 1947 as an equal opportunity and civil rights advocacy organization for African-American real estate professionals, consumers, and communities in America. But not only that, let me add this bit in with real estate. Not only buying a house obviously adds to black wealth, but let's also pay attention, family, to where we live. When you decide to live in a non-black community, you are basically handing over one of the strongest vehicles of wealth over to your enemy, because you're paying property taxes in their community. You're sending your children to their schools. You automatically are going to shop in their stores because they're the closest stores. So you're really putting yourself in a disadvantage. But of course, I'm only talking to people who say they give a damn about their people. If you just a Negro and you just want to live next to white folks and and dress a certain way and drive a certain way, that's on you. We ain't talking to you at all. Number 7, now that we can travel, find a black-owned hotel through the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers of Neighborhood. Don't set trip. That's just the name of the organization. These black-owned hotels include luxury franchise hotels such as the Westin and Hyatt Regency, and bed and breakfast hotels that are listed in a directory by state. I was very surprised when I went to that and found how many major franchises are owned by black people. And listen, don't be scared of franchises. You know, sometimes that's the blackest way you can spend your money in certain industries, is by finding black-owned franchises. Just like a black man owning a McDonald's or a Burger King. Obviously, he doesn't own the entire company, but that's his franchise. And they do the same thing with grocery stores as well as hotels and lodging. Number 8, many cities have a black chamber of commerce with black-owned businesses as members. Check out the U.S. Black Chambers, the national voice of black business, and its directory of black chambers for the chamber in your city. I would just say be careful with that, because a lot of those chambers of commerce are handled, or I should say, ran by their handlers, which are usually white politicians in local and state government. And then number 9, last but most importantly, there's the granddaddy of black-owned businesses, Black Enterprise, founded in 1970 by the late, great Earl Graves Sr. Black Enterprise provides an annual listing of the largest black-owned businesses, along with advice and information that inspires the entire industry. So again, family, our economic development is not going to come through any mystery, any spook. It's not going to come by just hustling up money. It's not going to come by some magical program where if you just drop money in it, you'll get you drop $1 in it, you'll get 2,000 back overnight. It's not going to work like that. Just spend your money in the blackest way possible. It's as simple as that. That's how Black Wall Street was built so quickly. That's how it was rebuilt so quickly. It's a turbine process. If you ever heard of a wind turbine or a water turbine, if you drive across country, you'll see those wind farms. They got those, look like big old fans, and it's like 1,000 of them, and they just sitting in the middle of a field somewhere just spinning. It's getting energy, and it's hoarding up energy, electrical energy, just based on the turbine turning from the wind. That means if you break it down to the simplest understanding, it's building up energy using something that's going to happen anyway. When is the wind not going to blow? Listen, when the wind stops blowing, we in trouble. The wind is always going to blow. Even when you don't feel the wind, there's wind blowing. And that's what turns those turbines, and that's what causes energy. They have water turbines too, where they sit a turbine at the bottom of a river that always flows a certain direction. And the water's going to always flow. They're getting energy off of something that's going to always happen. Black people, are you always going to wipe your backside after you use the bathroom? I hope so. Use Freedom Paper Company. You can get a free roll by going to nationtownstore.com, a black-owned toilet paper company. And they make paper towels, the whole 9. Do you brush your teeth? I hope so. Do you eat? I hope so. There are basic everyday things that we go to our enemy for, the same enemy that killed George Floyd, the same enemy that killed Trayvon, the same enemy, and then we had a nerve to complain and cry and be sad and protest. You have no grounds to protest if you eating out of the palm of your enemy. You have no grounds for it. None whatsoever. So we got to have a turbine mentality. The things you do the most, the things you're going to do anyway, it's cool to go to a black-owned restaurant. That's cool. That's good. If you're going to eat in the blackest way possible. But there are things now. There's no shortage of black businesses. And I'm going to close out with this. There's no shortage of black businesses. None. There's no shortage. You're just not looking hard enough. You're not looking like you would if you was looking to find out some dirt on somebody. Like you look for gossip, like you look for hood fights on World Star Hip Hop. You're not looking hard enough. And let me say this. Value when it comes to finances and economics is often rooted in scarcity. Even with something new like cryptocurrency. The value of a coin is usually rooted in the scarcity of it. If it's a coin that anybody can get their hands on and everybody got, that actually brings down the value. Diamonds are so expensive not because of what they look like and because the way they shine. You can get a cubic zirconia that shines just like a diamond. But it's because they're so difficult to get and they're rare. We don't even know how many more diamonds are left in the world. So they can manipulate the price of a diamond just based on the scarcity and just based on how difficult something is. So that tells you the value of finding black-owned businesses and spending your money with it. It's scarce. Even though it's a lot of black-owned businesses, it's still a little difficult. You're not going to watch the Super Bowl and see a black-owned business commercial during the commercial break. You're not going to, it ain't going to be right there in your face. Our people don't have the money to be advertising every day, all day. You ain't gonna see a bunch of billboards. They ain't gonna come knocking on your door every day. You gotta look for it. Just like you went out and you go and look for name brand clothing. It ain't sitting right in the hood. I ain't talking about the bootleg. I'm talking about the authentics. You can't just go around the corner in the hood and get authentic name brand clothing. You gotta go on the other side of the city and look for it. Well, if you do that with black-owned businesses, then you'll get the same effect. All praises due to Allah. And let me leave you with the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, where he breaks down the big five aspects of economic development as given to us by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in the book that I like to call the Black Man's Bible, otherwise known as Message to the Black Man. It can be found in this book. If you black and don't have this book, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from Savior's Day 2013 will break down those 5 major points that we have to do for economic development. And like I said, take the spookism out of it. Take the spookism out of it. Just spend your money in the blackest way possible. That's the only way. It ain't gonna come from no government bill. It ain't gonna come from somebody laying something out for you where all you gotta do is paint by. All you gotta do is just spend the money that you're gonna spend anyway in the blackest way possible. I'm gonna leave y'all as I greeted y'all in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
The necessity for unity and group operation. Do you understand that if we can work together as a group in unity, we will be more successful, more powerful, more able to do the things that as individuals working by ourselves, we have never been able to do. 2, pool your resources physically as well as financially. Stop wanton criticism of everything that is black owned and operated. Four, keep in mind that jealousy destroys from within. 5th, observe the operations of the white man. He is successful. He makes no excuses for his failures. He works hard in a collective manner. You do the same. Now, these are things that we must do. I was told to deliver this message.